So, chapter one, Hendricks, the Beatles, and Sergeant Pepper's. I was 5 years old when my father introduced my brother and me to Hendricks backstage before the show in the Albert Hall in 1969. Jimmy hoisted me up onto his shoulders and ran around the dressing room. And if the reports from the latest edit of the film, screened in 2019 at the Albert Hall, are correct, there's a bunch of new footage of us playing around in the dressing room before he goes on stage. Then, presumably too excited to contain myself at some point during the performance, I ran onto the stage and whispered something in his ear. Who knows what I said? Maybe it was a song request, or maybe I asked who his tailor was, as there was a distinct similarity in our clothing styles. What exactly it was remains a mystery. But that picture, black and white image of that stage encounter, which only showed up for me at Christmas of 2013, when Yazid Manu, a French music publicist for Sony Music, and a bit of a photo sleuth, contacted me on Facebook. I, of course, was blown away. The picture is now in the Handel and Hendricks Museum at 23 Brook Street, Mayfair, along with some blurb on my father. We're going to skip a little bit forward now. First memory. This is very much from the point of view of what it was like to grow up as a kid in the middle of counterculture. So with people like Tim Leary, the Stones, and one of those sort of key people was Tara Browne. So the first memory of that boy, which is me, Tara Browne, the man who inspired Lennon to write A Day in the Life, still in the first chapter. My earliest travel memory as a kid was a trip by car to Tara and his family at the country house in Ireland. My mother and father bundled us two boys into the back of the Mini Cooper and drove there, the ferry taking us across the water to the Emerald Isle. Many of my earliest memories are being tucked into the back of that car, bouncing up and down so our heads would hit the roof while my old man, usually in a rush, took us somewhere, dropped off a friend at an airport, or in this case, took us to see Tara, Irish prince, as he was often referred to in the circle of London poets and freaks. A member of the Guinness family, he was much loved for being a bit of a rebel, but also a man of exotic heritage. When Tara later came to visit us at our London house in his Lotus, seeing my eyes light up, he took me for a quick spin around Chester Square, where we lived at the time. Excuse me, a bit of a cold coming from. He seemed completely unaffected when we arrived at his house. He bundled us kids along with his baby into a warm bath and then put us in front of the fire, having wrapped us in oversized sweaters. And we're going to skip forward. Another main formative memory, apart from Tara, was literally the first memory, this is sort of 69, living with Charlotte in Hugh Street, which is above a photographic studio and a framers. And there was this mezzanine built. So it was quite, in childhood, it seemed like quite a big studio. Actually, when I revisited, it wasn't that big. But there was a staircase that, we'd walk a little ladder, Jake and I would climb up to, and they would, I'm not sure if they actually slept, into this mezzanine. So I must have been another primary memory. I must have been about 4 years old when one night, climbing up the ladder to the mezzanine where we slept in Hugh Street, I noticed some family photographs stuck to the wall by the wooden ladder. Dad would often do this. Stopping to look at them for a minute, I was curious about one and asked one of the adults, Dad or Charlotte Rampling, who was living with us at the time, "Who is that boy in the picture?" "That's you," they replied, laughing. And before then, I'd never actually had a sense of who I personally was in the physical world. It's an interesting change of perspective. I felt happy to be that kid, as the boy in the picture looked like a positive and not an attractive person. So moving forward a tiny bit in that chapter, like just a bit about Mum and George Harrison. He was a good friend of Mum's. Like most boys, I had an extremely close relationship with Mum. After I was born, however, she advertised in the paper for a nanny because I was the second one. Mo, 19 years old from Aberdeen, answered the ad, and she and I also became very close. I'd often sleep in Mo's bedroom at the top of the house, beneath the imposing poster of her teenage hero, George Best, which she had plastered to the ceiling above the bed. In sort of attic room. When George Harrison came to visit our home in Pimlico, I was woken in the middle of the night by a pinch from Nanny Mo. She was in a state of some panic and told me I had to go downstairs and interrupt the grown-ups who were playing records and smoking their funny cigarettes in the front room. As I rubbed my eyes, she frantically related that there was a beetle in the house, George Harrison, and she needed an excuse to meet him. I was to go down and tell Mum I'd had a nightmare. She would follow, and whisked me away from the adults, thus saving the day, but not before locking eyes with George. Can you hear me? Is it okay?